so since we recently covered Dale's variant Jimmy Hellstrom, why not go ahead and cover Hank's very own variant Hal?
Are you gonna see him again?
Oh, I don't know. Just a one-time thing with a guy in a parking lot, that's all.
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we have another new top tier patron. So, Rusty Shackelford, this one's for you.
All right. Someone's insane. Look out, someone's insane.
I got my eye on you, nutcase.
Alright, now let's get into it. Hal, last name unknown, voiced by Drew Carey, and it's clear that they based Hal's appearance on Drew Carey, though to me he's always kind of looked like Defense from Falling Down.
I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
And something I wanted to note is that Hal probably isn't short for anything. It's often short for Harold or Henry among others. I guess he could technically be named after IBM like another Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
And another name that's typically short for Henry is Hank. So Hank and Hal are both named shortened versions of Henry, and yes, Hank's legal name is Hank, not Henry.
Hank. How do I even know that's my name? My real parents might have called me Henry or Chris. God, Peggy, what if I'm a Chris?
Anywho, Hal shows up in Not in My Backhoe when Hank is at the Megalo Mart having an issue finding an L-pipe for Bill's new septic tank when he overhears someone else yelling at an employee. Apparently, Hal was looking for a certain size drill bit.
Now,
There
wait
has
a
to be
minute.
more than
You're
one
supposed
size
to be
drill
a
bit. There
plumbing
are different size
associate.
holes. How do you
don't
think that
know what a
happens?
pipe is?
Out in the parking lot, they get their trucks mixed up because they both have the same truck and they just so happen to park right next to each other. Now, I don't know who parked first, but if I park right next to a car that's exactly the same as mine, I'm gonna notice it. I've got a couple of conspiracy theories on this, but I'll get to those later.
Nice truck.
Does the job, then some.
Did you get the recall notice about the belts?
Back in 94?
Yep,
Got it. So, pick up some kind of L-pipe?
yep, 2 1/4 inch.
Septic?
Yeah, it's my neighbor's. We rented a loader backhoe for the job.
I hear Mason's got a new design.
That's what I rented.
Well, then I won't keep you.
Also, little nitpick here, at this point Hank drives a 93 Ford Ranger, which did have a recall in 1994, however it was for an issue with the parking brake, not with a belt. Oh, and apparently 2 1/4 is not the typical size for septic use. They end up meeting up again when they're getting gas at the same station. I bet Hank fills up his tank before it gets half empty. And it's interesting that Hal pulls in here because he obviously had to see Hank and decided to pull in behind him, and he doesn't get a whole lot of gas, so I think he just did this to talk to Hank again.
Hey, L-pipe, how you doing? You filling up with super?
Regular.
Just kidding.
Oh,
Now, so far, we've had Hal just happen to drive the same truck as Hank, just happen to park next to Hank, just happen to get in an argument with a retail employee on the same aisle as Hank. He just happens to guess that Hank is doing septic work, even though 2 1/4 is not a typical septic size. And when he sees Hank at a gas station, he pulls in behind him even though he doesn't need gas. What does all that mean? Well, I have several possible explanations. One, Hal is one of Cotton's bastard sons, and he knows that Hank is his brother and is simply trying to get to know him. He's been keeping tabs on Hank, hence why he keeps showing up where Hank is and how he knows why Hank is there. This also ties into theory B. Hal is Hank's stalker and has possibly been stalking him for years. This would explain why they had the same truck. Then there's theory 3. Hal is either gay or bi and has a crush on Hank. This would explain why some of his jokes could come off as flirting.
hey, you got someplace you need to be, or maybe you want to grab a beer?
Imported?
What? No, domestic. No. Imported. I gotta watch you.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with non-domestic beer, I'm just saying. I don't think any of those are true. I think it's just two guys that are very much alike and who enjoy each other's company. They end up going to the sports bar, real imaginative name there, where they drink Alamo and do what a lot of guys do, just kind of hang out. You'd think the bar would have Alamo on tap rather than the guys having to buy it by the bottle, then pour it into a mug themselves, but maybe I'm wrong. wrong. I do know I'm not wrong about Cabot cheese, because they may not pay me to say it, but it is damn good cheese. Hank calls Peggy to let her know where he is and what he's doing, and Peggy is apparently kind of surprised at how little Hank has learned about Hal.
You know, Peggy, we're having the best time. No, we didn't talk about that. No, he didn't mention it. That didn't come up either. Look, I'll be home later.
And we don't really know much about Hal. He doesn't really share any information. We have no clue if he's married or if he has kids. And that's probably on purpose as a way of looking at the lack of depth in male friendships. Which I get that these men are of a different time, but maybe it's because our society has become more open to sharing, and sometimes oversharing, that I don't really see this as much anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of male friendships are small talk broken up by long, comfortable periods of silence, but you're gonna at least learn the basics about somebody. Anywho, Hank introduces Hal to the guys. Boomhauer seems cool about it, but Dale and Bill are not huge fans of Hal coming around. And they end up acting like a mixture of children not getting attention and spouses who suspect they're being cheated on.
Hal, this is Dale, Bill, and Boomhauer.
Hey, fellas.
Yo.
See, look, Hank told me about your situation, and I was thinking you could just use a metal detector to trace the pipes back to your tank.
This gets worse when Hal mentions checking out something he saw on his way over, and Hank is totally on board. And look at Dale and Bill here, totally shocked that Hank would rather spend time with Hal instead of them. The overall feeling I get from this is like when I was a kid and I had my school friends and my neighborhood friends, and it was always weird trying to mix the two types together. Kind of like work friends and outside work friends, I suppose. That's just the feeling I get. Boomhauer, yeah, he seems unaffected because he's Boomhauer, though he's the one that ends up missing out, seeing as Hal and Hank also check out a place that only sells fireplace hardware, which is apparently something Boomhauer's a fan of.
Hey, on the way over, I passed this huge track hoe, 14-tonner. What do you say we go check her out?
Sorry, but we've got business to transact.
I'll go.
By the way, we also learned that Boomhauer is a fan of a cam girl named Jenny whose shower schedule Boomhauer apparently knows. Seems kind of an odd thing to just randomly drop there. Also keep in mind that this was 1999, so the resolution ain't gonna be that great, and he's watching it on dial-up.
Man, it is dang old pathetic, man. I only got a better thing to do than sitting around on that dang old, talking about old Jenny cam, man. We'll just be getting that shower, man, about old later.
Hank picks up Hal from what I assume is Hal's house. I'm guessing Hank was running late because we see Hal checking and tapping on his watch. And I gotta say, if Hal and Hank are supposed to be so much alike, I don't see Hank being a fan of chain link fencing or using cinder blocks for walls. Plus, the house is pink, there's no shrubbery. I don't know, it just doesn't seem very Hank-like. But at least we get a throwback reference.
So where's that bait and tackle shop you won't shut up about?
False alarm, Hank. Went last night, they didn't know a floater from a sinker. Now you want to see a great new store. Make a left at the light, then out to McMainerberry. Sports shop that spins around. Used to be a restaurant.
Yeah, if that sounds familiar, it's because Hank and Peggy visited that restaurant for their 20th anniversary in as old as the hills, back when it was the McMainerberry Hotel.
That restaurant was no 7.
Look, I didn't know the restaurant only revolves at lunch.
Well, now it spends all the time, like it is when Hank and Hal check it out. Though, again, the sporting goods store is called Sporting Goods. Did they fire the writer that came up with the business names or something? What's going on, guys? The sports bar, Sporting Goods? I mean, at least they're clear on what they sell, but seriously, a little more imagination here, people. Oh, and apparently propane is a hobby for Hal, possibly one he picked up from stalking Hank.
So this guy is trying to fill a service tank, and the drip lip vent is in the 6 o'clock position.
But instead of 12?
Exactly. You sure you never worked in propane?
Hobby, that's all.
The two also swing by Earl's Guitars, that's slightly better naming, but we've seen it before so it doesn't really count, to have a little jam session playing The Gambler by Kenny Rogers, which is apparently Hank's favorite song, or at least one of them, and this is not the only time we've seen him sing it.
Play the gambler. Come on, play the gambler. You've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em.
So yeah, the two guys sing The Gambler while Bill and Dale listen in because they're stalking them, eventually joining in themselves.
And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right.
You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. You got to know when to hold 'em.
When to hold 'em.
With Dale and Bill too busy with their in-car karaoke session to stalk Hank and Hal, they're able to get Bill's septic tank put in place, which Dale and Bill are not happy about. It was supposed to be their project together, not Hank and Hal's. Plus, they wanted to drive the equipment more even though neither of them had any business behind the controls of that thing.
Well, I tell you, your tank's as big as a school bus. Laid in pretty nicely, all the same.
All I see is trespassing.
We start to see the end of the Hank-Hal friendship when they're on the phone, with the idea being to get together and have a beer. But the logistics just don't line up, and I totally get this. As an adult who has seen the time I spend with friends dwindle over the years as we all take on more responsibility, and it becomes more and more difficult to find time for something like just a beer.
Hal, it's Hank. Beer? Sure. Well, no, that won't work. My wife will have dinner ready in an hour, and you're over 20 minutes away. Yeah, next time.
And with that idea off the board, Peggy suggests that Hank go out to the alley for a beer with the guys, to which only Boomhauer shows up because Bill and Dale were spooning in a grave of their own creation in a pet cemetery.
Sometimes that is better.
No, not that pet cemetery. Yes, that one. More backhoe, less Wendigo. And Hank does try the alley suggestion, but it doesn't work out well at all.
So, got any big dates?
Man, leave me alone, man. I'm talking about that old question, man. No questions. Man, I'm not like my dang mother, man. But Boomhauer, when you gonna get married? Don't make me grandmother. No, they don't let me.
Hank and Hal meet up at what looks to be a rest stop, but it's supposedly an equal distance for both of them to travel, which is odd because it takes Hal 17 minutes and Hank 18. But Hank said earlier that Hal lived 20 minutes away, so why aren't they meeting somewhere that's 10 minutes from each of them? My guess is this might be their lunch break, but it seems really odd that they're drinking on their lunch break. That's very un-Hank. So yeah, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Maybe tomorrow we can meet, I don't know, that Exxon over there. That ought to even things out.
Man, I don't know. I only get a 45-minute lunch hour. Let's try getting together tonight.
I don't know. By the time I get home from Strickland Propane and come down from the day...
Well, they try to make plans, but Hank slowly comes to the realization that he could maintain a friendship with Hal, but he'd have to rearrange his normal routine to do so, and that really wasn't something he was on board with doing. I get it. Like I said earlier, as you get older, life kind of gets in the way, and you get set into a routine that you don't really want to break out of, and this is ultimately what dooms the friendship between Hank and Hal.
Let's shoot for next Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, no, Saturday's Bobby's football game, and he really likes me to watch it with him.
And it was at that point the two of them just kind of came to the unspoken understanding that their friendship had run its course. Sometimes that happens, as it was rather well put in Stand By Me.
It happens sometimes. Friends come in and out of your life like busboys in a restaurant.
Yeah, they met, shared some time and some laughs together, and headed off on their way in different directions. Most likely never to meet again.
Guess this is it then.
Yeah. Well, you take care of that truck of yours.
And that's the last we see of Hal, his truck in Hank's rearview mirror as they drive away from each other for the last time. Hank sad, but accepting of the situation.
I'm gonna miss that crazy bastard.
When Hank rescues Dale and Bill from their own stupidity, we get confirmation that Hal is for sure gone, and would not be coming back, something that Dale and Bill seem happy about, seeing as they don't have to share Hank anymore. But the outcome probably would have been different had Hal been a neighbor, and continuing a friendship with him was easier for Hank.
Where is Hal? Huh? Hank? Hal's gone.
Yep.
So, Hal, again, we know pretty much nothing about the man. He is very much like Hank, except for the chain link fencing and pink house paint. He dabbled in propane as a hobby, he enjoyed Alamo beer, he gets a 45-minute lunch break at work, and he may have been one of Cotton's bastard children, or just a straight-up stalker. I get the idea was, hey, we've got Drew Carey, who if he was a Spice would be Flower, let's have him voice a character that's just another Hank. Same sort of thing they did with David Carradine and Junichiro. It could also be argued argued that Hal is to Hank what Jimmy Hellstrom was to Dale. And just as Jimmy was Dale without Nancy, maybe Hal was Hank without Peggy. He was an interesting one-off character that served his purpose for an episode, and really, sometimes that's all we can expect from a character that's voiced by a guest star. Not everybody's Tom Petty. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see y'all next time.
The detector would go off constantly due to the high levels of extraterrestrial alloy in our soil, which acts as a homing beacon to the Martian capital of City.